Hello everybody, it's Lazel here with another video, and in today's episode of how I would build on a budget, I will feature cavalry plus archers, and I would say we get started with the gear, so let's jump over to the forge. Okay, we will start off with the weapon, and from level 30 on it is actually pretty simple because we would start with the Dascode. Currently I'm gambling one of those, and this is like the starting point when you start to work with cavalry and archers on C30, because you have the double archer attack and the march speed that you actually want. I would also have a backup holy crossbow just for the recruitment speed up, and the Wild Thunder is a weapon that I have rarely seen being used, especially in the combination of cavalry and archer. You have the cavalry attack and the archer attack, but especially on C30 you have to use the even cavalry, which also has as a passive skill the increased attack when attacking, so it doesn't not really make sense to prioritize the cavalry attack. It is more like you should have an eye on featuring or focusing the attack of your backline unit, which would then be your archers. So for a C30, the Dascode definitely makes most sense. So, and on 35 it is also pretty quickly answered this question. You don't go for the mastery staff, you would go for the fiery crossbow because this features everything that you want for a cavalry, and archer focus player because you have double archer attack and cavalry attack, and in addition to that march speed, so you have everything that you need to have a fast march, and you have the improvement for the army that you're using. Let's continue with the belt. On C30 it is actually also very simple because the sacred belt does not feature anything that you want for your troop combination, so you would go for the blessing belt, which gives you cavalry HP and sadly nothing really else. Of course you have the raised wounded limit and healing speed, but in the end you're kind of like just sitting there and only benefiting from just one of the stats. But this gets better when you go for the level 35 belt, because there you would pick the Radiance belt, which has archer attack, cavalry HP, angel HP, raised wounded limit, like 4 stats that really help you out. Okay, let's say 3 for the, we just subtract the raised wounded limit because it does not help with your fighting performance, only when you get attacked or when you're doing an SOS, and everything outside of that really helps with your army performance. When we compare this with the Eternity belt, of course the infantry attack and mage attack are nice for mage players and infantry players, but in the end your frontline, or when you compare infantry and cavalry from the frontline unit from the attack stats, cavalry have higher attack stats, so the Radiance belt is definitely the way to go. And then we would come to the accessories. From the accessories it is on the level 30, it is definitely the Dark Lord Guard. This thing is just awesome. I still use it just because of the stamina recovery and the monster attack speed, but outside of that, as a C30 you have cavalry attack and archer attack, so definitely a nice thing to pick here. The Noble badge has the cavalry attack, but when you want to improve your attack, you want to help out your backline unit and not your frontline unit. Of course there are cavalry players that only send cavalry, and these guys do it a massive amount of damage by just sending cavalry out, but they also have the fitting technology to that. As a C30 I can definitely recommend to go for the Dark Lord Guard because it features your frontline, your backline and your overall castle improvement because of the stamina recovery and monster attack speed. So as a C35 this is like the thing why cavalry and archers are such a strong combination, because there you would go for the Perfect Heart. The Perfect Heart is just crazy for this combination because you have archer attack and you have angel attack on your accessory. Of course infantry attack not beneficial for you, but still this thing really makes archers and cavalry very powerful, because a big part of the cavalry archer combination are your angels, and you have on the Perfect Heart you have the archer attack and angel attack, so you have like the damage secured for your whole backline just by forging this Perfect Heart. And if we would compare this to the Chaos Bracelet, you would have angel HP, and when I often talk about how strong the angels are when they are attacking and why you should always have an eye on increasing your angel attack because of the Sacred Flame, and with the Perfect Heart you really do that, and this is just crazy. The Perfect Heart is like the accessory that you will pick and in my opinion also keep when you at some point will hit C40, because the Lionheart ring gives you additional archer attack and angel HP, but what you want as a cavalry player is angel attack and archer attack. And on both of these C40 parts you have nothing for your cavalry HP, so even as a C30 I personally would stick to the Perfect Heart. Okay, let's continue with the helmet. The helmets are like, you would go in my opinion for the Templar Crown as a C30 because you have double cavalry HP, recruitment speed and army size limit. All of these stats really help you out, 3 of them for your fighting performance, and the recruitment speed is for your overall improvement or troop count improvement. When we look into the Crown of Praise, it does not make any sense, and also the Dragon Scale Crown does not make any sense. No, none of the stats are beneficial for you. And on C35 is also a very easy thing to answer here. You would go for the Royal Crown. It is just massive. The Royal Crown is a thing, cavalry HP twice, army size limit and angel limit. Just crazy what an amount of angels you can get when you're going for the cavalry plus archer combination, because you would forge a second eternity belt here, maybe in purple, or if you have the materials also in orange quality to get increased angel limit. And also on this belt you could get then the angel limit enhancement and improve your angel count even further. So this is what's about the helmets. Of course on C40 you would maybe get the Guardian helmet because you get a bit more cavalry HP, but here you would lose the angel limit, so this is really a thing up to you. But you can also say that you will forge a second Guardian helmet. It always depends on how many materials you have and how your forging plan looks. But as a C35, which is currently very realistic for most of us, the Royal Crown would be the thing to pick. Now we come to the armor parts, and here it wouldn't be the Dragon Scale armor, because here you have archer defense and cavalry defense. Nice stats to have for your fighting performance, definitely. So this is really a fighting chest as a C30, but what I personally would prefer is the Armor of Hymns, just because of the fact you have cavalry defense and you're not having archer defense. Yes, that is correct. So for pure fighting performance, I would go for the Dragon Scale armor, but you have the stamina recovery on your Armor of Hymns. And as a C30, you still want to improve your castle and you want to have a good income of Azeroth, and stamina recovery helps you out with that. And if you would go for the Armor of Hymns, yes, you would have a tougher time from C30 to C35 because you don't have the archer defense that you would have in the Dragon Scale armor, but you would reduce the time from C30 to C35 drastically because you have way more stamina recovery and you get way more Azeroth from hunting monsters. So the Armor of Hymns would be my pick. Templar armor, you can forge a second version of this just for the recruitment speed up. But as a C35, I personally would definitely go for the Celestial armor. I also have a pair of this one in orange quality just because of the stamina recovery. And if you're then also saying, okay, I profit from the double cavalry defense because I'm a cavalry frontline player, then you are very well set to keep your improvement going. You have double cavalry defense here, the load boost, okay, not that interesting, and you have stamina recovery. So you can just keep wearing this armor and you will always have a good stamina recovery rate just from wearing this one. And as a C40, I often said that the Guardian breastplate is just crazy. This thing is like the goal of item that you want to forge. You have double cavalry defense, you have angel attack on a chest part, which is just crazy, and stamina recovery. This is a thing to aim for in my opinion because of the additional angel attack for the trade when we compare it to the Celestial armor. you swap load boost for angel attack, which is just a very, very good deal, like one of the best deals that you can make in this game. And so this would be the gear part to pick. And now we come to the last gear parts. When we check out the Sacred Boots, I really like them as a C30 because of the stamina recovery and the monster attack speed. And it doesn't matter what backline you use, you benefit from it because of the Archer HP and the Mage HP. But the Dusk Boots are way better for the Cavalry plus Archer combination because of the double attack for your frontline and for your backline unit. The increased gather speed boost is also nice because you gather gems very fast or faster with that. And so the Dusk Boots would be the boots that I would forge for my fighting performance, but I would also have a Sacred Boots backup for my stamina recovery. The last thing, the Dragon Rider boots, I don't need to talk about them. And when we then come to the C35 station, we would go, or I personally would go for the Monarch boots because I think they are very good. You have cavalry attack and you have cavalry HP, so very beneficial stats for your front line. And I would still forge maybe purple part of Dragonhide boots just for the additional stamina recovery. This is really like a thing that you should always have an eye on, to have a farming gear part which has a very high stamina recovery and a fighting set of gear for your event performance. Okay, and then when we come to the level 40 gear, it's like still the same. Guardian boots are the boots for your fighting performance, and they are just made for Cavalry Archer players because of Cavalry HP, Archer HP and Cavalry attack. And then you would take your farming pair of boots and make a dragon bone leg guard out of those for more stamina recovery. It is a bit sad that you lose out on monster attack speed because then you march a bit longer, but the additional stamina recovery, if you just make 1 second out of it, is definitely a good payoff. So all in all, this would be the gear that I would pick if I would build a Cavalry plus Archer castle. And now we will continue with the enhancements. Okay, so when we have a look at a typical Archer or Cavalry Archer weapon, I personally would be the person, because when I play Cavalry as a frontline unit, I really have a big focus on my event performance. Here in the weapon enhancement, I personally would go for the additional angel attack because as I just talked in the gear part about the perfect heart, this is like the thing to aim for. You want to have good cavalry, strong archers, but the very big part, in my opinion, about cavalry archer combination are the angels. So I would have an eye on the angel attack enhancement, or you can also go for the archer attack enhancement. But don't forget that a lot of cavalry players really benefit from their technology or from their whole troop formation when they are playing alone. And when I'm playing alone, I always have my SOS as a backup skill, so I'm always fine to send all of my angels, and angels are currently the strongest unit in the game, so I would definitely have an eye on improving their technology, which is why I would have an eye on the angel attack. When we come to boots, belt and accessory, as always, I am saying that damage increased when attacking and damage taken reduced when attacking are the best enhancements to pick when you are an offensive player. So on your accessory, on your belt, where is it? On your belt and on your boots, I would always go for the damage increased when attacking or damage taken reduced when attacking enhancements. Okay, so now we come to the helmet. And here in the helmet it gets very interesting because cavalry, one of their biggest weaknesses are actually mages, which is why a lot of people like to build a big reduced damage from mages. And this is also something that I would have an eye on when I look for enhancements. But always take into consideration that when you go for reduced damage from X, you will lag out in event performance like the Undead King, for example, because you don't improve the base stats of your units, which is why I personally, when I build cavalry plus archers, I would have an eye on reduced damage from mages and reduced damage from angels. Why angels? When you, or with the update of the star runes, we fight like on a daily basis down here, and we always fight 1 versus 1, and most players always bring all of their angels, which is why I also like to have an eye on the enhancement of reducing the damage from angels. When you're saying you are a very active player that wants to go out solo in the Void War, for example, then I would have an eye on a double reduced damage from mages enhancement, just because of the fact when we look into the passive skill of the odd cavalry, you have reduced damage from archers anyways already by 25%. So in addition to that, you just have to look for the reduced damage from mages, also because of the fact that the odd mages have bonus damage against cavalry, so reducing damage from mages is definitely a good thing to pick. I personally would like to have an eye on getting an even balance out of reduced damage from angels and reduced damage from mages. For me personally, because I really like to play Void alone, I would then look for reduced damage from mages twice, once on my helmet and once on my chest. But this is really up to everybody's individual play style. Definitely have an eye on what events do you like the most and how do you want to play in these events. When you are saying, okay, I really enjoy the star runes and I always want to rank in a very high level deep load, then a balance out of reduced damage from angels and reduced damage from mages can be very helpful. But when you're saying, okay, I only play this game for Void and I want to get the most out of it, the combination of saying, okay, I will solo attack castles with cavalry and archers, then going for double reduced damage from mages can be a bit more helpful, because you will always have a limited amount of angels, but there's an infinite amount of mages that your opponents can have. So going for double reduced damage from mages can be very helpful when Void is your focus or solo attacks on other castles are your focus. When you really want to have a bit more focus on the star runes, then I personally would go for reduced damage from angels and reduced damage from mages. When you are saying, okay, I also want to have a good performance in events, maybe then you should have an eye on cavalry defense and cavalry HP, but I personally cannot recommend to do that, because cavalry is like made for fighting against other players, and this is why I would have an eye on the reduced damage from X parts. Okay, this is it about the enhancements, and now we come to the pet skills. Okay, so I have had a very long discussion with a good friend of mine about the pet skills, and we came to the following conclusion. When you want to build a cavalry plus archer castle, we would go for the force expansion to increase your march size. What we then also would pick is the anti-infantry skill for more damage against infantry, because you have to imagine or see it like that. When you are attacking a castle with the formation of just cavalry, angels and archers, your units will always run into the opponent's infantry, and you want to disrupt the opponent's formation as fast as possible, so having additional damage against infantry is definitely a nice thing. Then we would go for the attack expert skill, because you are increasing the attack of all of your units, which includes angels. So, and this is what you want to have as an attacking castle, as a solo attacking castle, because you will always bring your angels and they need the attack to make the Sacred Flame as powerful as possible. For the last skill, we personally had a talk about maybe you want to go for life source or for the reduced damage from mages. When I can find it here it is, the resist magic down here. And we came to the conclusion, for example, if I would like to switch to cavalry now, I personally would stick to my life source, because I have invested so much into the skill to get it to level 17. And if I would use it now to bring up my resist magic skill, then I would lose a lot of pet skill experience. When you are about to build your Cavalry plus Archer setup, then we would definitely say go for the resist magic skill to improve your reduced damage from mages even further, to like work on the weakness of your cavalry. So these are like the 4 pet skills that I personally would pick. And now we come to the artifacts that I would pick. Okay, so let's get to the budget part of this video, which is the array. An artifact that is always very interesting for especially cavalry players, doesn't matter if you have mages or archers as backline unit, is the Lubus Halberd. Just every stat on it is very beneficial, and you accomplish or you achieve this artifact very fast because it is a blue artifact, but it is very strong. It is comparable to the Aspis artifact for infantry and mage players, and this one, especially for cavalry plus archers, you benefit from every stat. Especially the 4th star with the damage reduction for cavalry is a very big payoff for you. So definitely an artifact to pick in my opinion. An artifact that I can only recommend for growing castles that are still working on getting decent technology, and as I just said, are growing. The Chukunu is okay, because you have a lot of archer beneficial stats for this artifact or from this artifact, and especially when you're growing, you will probably still join a lot of stacks with your alliance, and it ain't wise to bring cavalry to a stack in my opinion. And if you then send infantry too and you have additional infantry HP from this artifact, this is an okay pick to do in my opinion, but in the long run I can recommend to replace this artifact for something else, and I will get to the options later. For the start, this one is okay, but if you're already at a pretty high castle level and you have a pretty good technology and performance, I wouldn't work on this artifact. When you're still growing, this is definitely an interesting artifact, but in the long run, you should replace it in my opinion. Now we come to an artifact that is made for cavalry players. The Gusli artifact, every stat on it is just beneficial for cavalry players in every situation. You have stats that work on your base technology, like the attack boost, cavalry attack, HP boost, and you have very beneficial stats for your fighting performance, like reduced damage from mages and damage increased against angels. So a very helpful artifact for cavalry players in general. The Excalibur artifact is like the budget orange artifact that a lot of budget players use, because you get 6 fragments per week for free when you play the Monster Swarm, and these help you to work on this artifact way faster than on many other artifacts. So definitely a good thing to pick in my opinion. Also for cavalry plus archers, because of the attack boost on the base star, that also helps you out with your angel attack. You have cavalry attack on the 2nd star, you have an increased army size limit on the 3rd star, and on the 5th and 6th star you get beneficial stats for cavalry plus archers too. So now we come to the 5th pick, and this is really an interesting one, and this is also my personal opinion. I would go for the Called Witch. The base stat, reduced damage from mages, very helpful and much needed for cavalry players. The damage increased against angels is pretty nice, especially when you are down there in the star ruins and fight a lot of angels. The cavalry attack on the 3rd star ain't that interesting, still a nice thing to have, especially when you're currently fighting with even cavalry, then they deal way more damage. But on the 3rd star you are able to unlock the passive skill, and the passive skill is, or the active skill is like the interesting thing about this artifact in my opinion. When you have the chance to stun opponents' units for 2 seconds, they miss out like 1 or 2 attacks on you, and this is like massive in my opinion. I have experienced it myself. I was down in the star ruins, attacked somebody that had the skill, then the skill triggered. These 3 lightning bolts hit my 3 main units, my infantry, my angels, and my mages, and it happened that my angels and my mages were stunned for 2 seconds, and that gave my opponent a win. Also, he had a way better technology than me, so I can tell from personal experience that this artifact, especially with the skill, is very interesting, not only for the star runes, but also when you are attacking other castles and let's say, for example, you are able to stun a unit pool of 600k mages that are attacking your cavalry, then just imagine how much damage your opponent is missing during those 2 seconds. Okay. But now I quickly want to talk about a few options that you have for later when you want to replace the Chukunu, and I'd like to talk about them and explain how I think about them. So there are 3 interesting artifacts that you would have to evaluate over the time while you are still working on other artifacts, which one is the most interesting for you. Okay, so I personally think that the Apollo's Bow is very interesting, also for its active skill or for its passive skill, because you have the chance to trigger a critical attack from every unit pool. This is just interesting, and I've seen other players already doing it and they are very successful with it. Also, a lot of stats on this artifact are very beneficial for Cavalry plus Archers. The base stat, damage increased against Cavalry, is pretty good, especially when you are attacking solo castles or when you are down in the star runes and you face Cavalry as a frontline unit. Archer attack on the second, also very interesting. And all the other stats are also very helpful for your Cavalry combination, except for the 4th star with infantry attack. You don't want that, but still this artifact is very interesting for a few stats, but mostly in my opinion for its passive skill. You can use it in a lot of different situations and this would be up to you. Another interesting artifact for the Cavalry plus Archer combination is the Heavenly Spear, in my opinion. I think this artifact is very interesting because it is very Archer focused. You have like Archer HP, you have Archer attack, you have Archer damage. And this can be interesting if you are a Cavalry player and you play a lot of solo, but you still tend to join team stacks and you bring infantry and archers, and in my opinion you shouldn't bring angels to stacks, because when you lose angels it takes a very long time to recruit them again, and then you can add more archers, and by adding more archers and having a way better technology for them, you can deal way more damage during a stack. So I think that the Heavenly Spear is a good artifact also for cavalry players that also tend to go more into team stacks. And the last one, if you have found out over the time that you're losing way too much units, that you want your frontline to be more healthy, then in my opinion you could work on the golden armor. I personally have lost a lot of interest in the golden armor because of its active skill, but what we also have to see is that especially budget players, we won't have that much star power pretty soon to unlock that many skills, and the skills of the golden armor is very uninteresting for me. So yeah, but still the golden armor is still a good artifact. Every stat on it is very beneficial for the defense of your army or for your cavalry. And if you find out over the time that you are losing too many units, then the golden armor is definitely a nice option for you. So this was a very detailed look into a budget array, and later on about options about replacing the Chukunu or what you can replace the Chukunu for. And now I would say we come to the Colossus. Okay, so, and I have often explained how I personally would build a Colossus when it comes to certain combinations. And now here it is kind of like, it is always the same. You go for the very defensive stats, for example, cavalry, HP and defense, but your main priority will be cavalry takes less damage from archers and from mages, and everything else like cavalry attack or cavalry takes less damage from infantry will be just points that you will use to get to certain Colossus levels to improve or to unlock certain Colossus skills, like cavalry HP, cavalry defense, and reduce damage from archers and mages are like your main priorities. This stays the same when we look into the Archer Colossus. I personally would go for the Archer attack, and for the bonus damages against the different frontline units like Cavalry and Infantry, and also have an eye on additional damage against mages. But from your odd mages, this is like you always balance it between what current highest tier you can send, because the even archers have bonus damage against infantry, and the odd archers have additional damage against mages. So it always depends, in my opinion, what is your current highest troop gear, and according to that you or I would personally prioritize what of these skills I would upgrade first. Okay, so kind of like actually pretty simple. What I can always recommend is have an eye on which level you unlock the next Colossus skill, and try a lot of different combinations to find out how to split the points so that you always have as many Colossus skills as possible active. Okay, and for the last part we come to a few interesting Zodiacs that might help you out, or in the end we will end up with gathering all of the different Zodiacs anyways, but let's have a look at some Zodiacs that are very interesting. Starting off with the Sagittarius. It is like you have archer damage, you have archer HP and archer attack on it. Like everything helps you out when it comes to improving your backline. What I think is like the best Zodiac for cavalry overall is like the Arius, because you have cavalry attack, you have angel attack. Angel attack is like the thing that we all are looking for. Then you follow up with cavalry HP for your defense aspect, and then you have damage reduction for cavalry. I have talked over the whole video about reduced damage from angels, reduced damage from mages and all of that stuff. This is like the all-in-one combination. So having an upgrade ready for the Arius is like hitting the jackpot, in my opinion. This Zodiac is like really, really good. We can still have a look over a few other Zodiacs, but in the end, the Arius and the Sagittarius are things that I would definitely have an eye on. And here, the Cancer Zodiac is also a thing that is really interesting, because having more reduced damage from archers is a good thing to have. As a Cavalry Archer player, you rely a lot on the passive skill of the odd cavalry when it comes to facing archers. And having the Cancer Zodiac upgrade is like an additional passive improvement for the passive skill for your odd cavalry. And everything else on it is also beneficial for you. You have archer HP, cavalry HP, archer attack, all the things that you need. So far we already found 3 very good Zodiacs that are nice to upgrade when it comes to cavalry and archer combination. Now we are at a point where there are still a few interesting ones. For example, here the Leo, of course, only 2 interesting stats for you. You have angel HP, but the reduced damage from mages is a nice thing to have. And so far we are running out. Libra, also the same thing. You have archer attack and cavalry HP and reduced damage from angels. So also a good Zodiac for you. But the first 3 that I talked about are like my favorites, and the biggest favorite in my opinion is definitely the Arius one, because of the 4 stats on it that really help you out, and the biggest one of it is like the damage reduction for cavalry. Okay guys, so this is actually how I would build a combination of archers and cavalry, with a big focus on the angels, of course. Now there's only 1 troop combination left, and it is infantry plus archers. I will work on this video too. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know down in the comments below, especially how you think about my area situation, and then I would say see you in the next video. Goodbye guys.